The afternoon sun rested softly on the old brick walls of the university, covering the entrance in a warm golden tone. Students walked in and out, some chatting, some rushing, and some lost in their own thoughts. At the edge of the entrance, where the pathway widened into a small open space, a girl set up her small keyboard. It wasn't anything fancy. The paint on the side had chipped off in places, and one of the keys had a tiny crack. But she played it as if it were the most precious thing she owned. Her music started gently, almost like a whisper in the wind, but soon it wrapped itself around everyone passing by. Students slowed down without meaning to. Some smiled. Some closed their eyes for a moment. Her melody had a softness that made people feel safe, and a strength that made them stop and listen. She didn't look older than her early 20s, yet there was a depth in the way she played, something that felt like she had lived through moments she didn't talk about. She sat straight but relaxed, her fingers moving with a smooth rhythm. Every note had emotion, like she was letting her heart speak through the keys. She didn't ask for anything. She didn't call out to people to listen. She just played, hoping her music could help her earn a little for the day. Sometimes a student would drop a coin or a small bill into the open pouch she placed beside her keyboard. She always thanked them with a warm smile, one that felt real, not forced. For days, she had been playing near the campus entrance, and every day more students recognized her. Some would arrive a little earlier just to hear her for a few minutes before class. A few even recorded short clips and shared them online with captions like, "This girl plays like a dream," or "Her music makes my walk to class better." She didn't know her videos were spreading. She didn't know that her soft afternoon melodies had already become something students looked forward to, but not everyone felt that way. Inside the administrative building, the dean stood by his window, watching the flow of students outside. He was known across campus for being strict, serious, and never easy to please. His office was arranged perfectly, every file stacked with sharp edges aligned, every decorator item placed precisely in its spot. He liked order. He liked rules. Anything outside of that bothered him more than he ever admitted out loud. He had noticed the girl playing earlier in the week, but at first he brushed it off. He thought she would be gone in a day or two. But when he saw her again and again, and when he noticed groups of students slowing down to listen, he grew irritated. To him, the entrance of the university was supposed to reflect discipline and focus. It wasn't a stage. It wasn't a public performance area, and certainly not a place where someone should gather a crowd in his view. He watched her from the window, the way she played with her eyes half closed, the way students smiled at her music, and he felt something inside twist with annoyance. "This is unnecessary," he muttered under his breath. He stepped away from the window, walked to his desk, and picked up the phone. His voice stayed calm, but there was a sharpness in it. He called the head of security and spoke simply, "There is a girl playing music at the entrance again. Please ask her to leave. This is a place for academics, not street shows." Outside, the girl continued playing her gentle tune, unaware of the phone call that had just decided her afternoon. Students passing by kept listening, even if only for a moment. A few whispered to each other about how calming her music felt. Someone even said, "I wish the campus had more moments like this." But then, 2 security officers walked toward her. She noticed them approaching, but she kept playing for another few seconds, hoping it wasn't about her. When they stopped beside her, she looked up, her fingers slowly coming to rest on the keys. One of them spoke politely, not unkind, but firm. "We're sorry, but you can't play here anymore. We've been instructed to ask you to pack up." She blinked, confused at first. "Oh, I didn't know it was a problem," she said quietly. "It's an order from above," the officer added. "We don't have a choice." She nodded gently, her smile fading but still trying to remain polite. She didn't argue. She didn't raise her voice. She just started to turn off her small keyboard. The music stopped all at once, leaving a soft silence behind. A few students nearby watched the scene, their faces showing disappointment. One of them whispered, "Why are they making her leave? She's not hurting anyone." Another said softly, "She plays better than half the performers in our events." But none of them stepped forward yet. They were surprised, unsure if they should say something. The girl unplugged the keyboard slowly, handling every part with care, as if she didn't want to break the silence even more. She lifted the keyboard, though it was clear from her posture that it was heavier than it looked. The strap she used to carry it dug slightly into her shoulder. She bent down to pick up her small pouch, now with a few coins and notes inside. Her expression was gentle, but inside she felt a small ache. She had played in a lot of places, street corners, bus stops, small community fairs, but she had never been asked to leave because her music didn't belong. She didn't want trouble. She didn't want attention. She simply chose this spot because she thought students, with all their stress and long days, might appreciate a little music dot as she walked away. A few students watched her, their eyes filled with sympathy. One of them took a step forward, ready to say something. But by the time he built the courage, she was already moving down the brick path. Her keyboard held close to her. The dean, still standing at his window, watched her walk away. He didn't see her face. He didn't see the sadness she tried to hide. To him, everything was now back to normal. He closed the blinds and returned to his perfectly neat desk. But the students outside didn't feel like things were normal at all. A group of them gathered for a moment, talking quietly among themselves. "She wasn't bothering anyone," one said. Another nodded. "Her music literally makes my day better. Why kick her out?" Someone else added, "That's the problem with the administration. Everything is rules and no heart." They weren't angry yet, but something had started. Meanwhile, the girl walked toward the small spot she usually rested during breaks, a bench under a tall tree near the sidewalk. She set down her keyboard carefully and sat beside it. She let out a slow breath, trying not to feel discouraged. She didn't blame the security officers. She knew they were just doing their job. But she couldn't help feeling a little hurt. She looked at her keyboard, brushing her fingers gently along the cracked key. She had earned this instrument through months of saving. It wasn't much, but it was hers. Music had always been the one thing that gave her peace. Even on days when the rest of life felt heavy, she closed her eyes for a moment and listened to the sounds. Around her, the distant chatter of students, the soft rustling of leaves, the cars passing by on the road. She wondered if she should find another place to play today, maybe a bus stop or a park. But then she remembered the smiles, the small crowd, the way people paused just to hear her. Maybe she had made someone's day better. Maybe her music had given someone a moment of calm they needed. That thought gave her strength again. A soft breeze passed through the trees, touching her face gently, almost as if encouraging her. She smiled a little. She wasn't going to give up, not over something like this. What she didn't know was that several students were already talking about her online. Her removal had sparked conversations she couldn't see. And although she didn't know it yet, her story wasn't ending here. It was only beginning. The dean believed he had restored order. But what he didn't realize was that music, especially music played with heart, had a way of coming back louder, stronger, and impossible to ignore, and soon. The evening light softened across the campus as students finished their classes for the day. The air had that quiet hum of people chatting, footsteps moving between buildings, and the soft rustle of leaves in the breeze. But something felt different. A small emptiness hung near the entrance where the girl used to play her keyboard. People noticed it, even if they didn't talk about it right away. It was as if a warm light had been turned off without warning. A group of students walked past the spot where she usually sat. One of them glanced at the empty space and let out a small sigh. "It feels strange without her music," he said. His friend nodded. "I didn't realize how much it changed the vibe here until it stopped." A few others quietly agreed. Later that afternoon, in one of the common lounges in the arts building, a few students gathered around a table. They were chatting casually at first, but the topic soon shifted. "Did you see what happened earlier?" one asked while adjusting her backpack. "Security told the pianist girl to leave." "I saw it," another replied. "It felt so unnecessary. She wasn't loud or anything." A third student tapped her fingers on the table, thinking deeply. "Does anyone even know her name?" They all shook their heads. She had never introduced herself to anyone. She simply played, smiled, and left quietly. "I recorded her playing last week," one student suddenly remembered. "I posted the video online. A lot of people liked it. Some even asked who she was." He pulled out his phone and played the clip again. The gentle notes filled the lounge, and for a few moments the group fell silent, listening to the recording like it was a memory they didn't want to lose. "She's really talented," someone said softly. "More talented than half the performers at our last campus event." Another student leaned forward. "We should at least find out who she is. Maybe she comes here every day for a reason." That sparked a small conversation. They didn't plan anything big yet, but the idea settled in their minds. Meanwhile, the girl sat at her usual resting spot under the same tree from earlier. Her keyboard lay beside her, and she stared at the screen of her old phone. She was scrolling through job listings, anything that would help her earn something for the week. But every option she found either needed full availability or special skills she didn't have. Her younger sibling had messaged her earlier, asking if she had earned enough for groceries. She replied gently, telling them not to worry. But inside, she felt a quiet weight pressing on her. She wanted to help more. She wanted life to be easier for both of them. She wished she had more choices. She looked at her keyboard for a moment. Music was the only thing she truly knew. It was the only thing she felt confident about. She didn't have fancy training, but she had years of practice. She had spent countless nights teaching herself by watching videos and listening to sounds until her fingers learned each movement. She thought about the students who listened earlier, their smiles, their quiet admiration. She wondered if she should go back tomorrow, maybe try again in a different spot. She didn't like getting in trouble, but she didn't want to lose her chance to play for people who appreciated it. As she sat there thinking, a few students walked by. One of them recognized her. He hesitated for a moment, then stepped closer. "Hey," he said gently, not wanting to startle her. "You were the one playing at the entrance earlier, right?" She looked up, surprised but polite. "Yes, that was me. I really liked your music," he said with an honest smile. "A lot of us did." Her eyes softened. "Thank you. I'm glad it meant something to you." The student looked like he wanted to say more, but he didn't want to overwhelm her. "I just wanted you to know we appreciate it. I hope you don't stop playing because of what happened." She nodded slowly. "I'm not planning to stop. I just need to figure out where I'm allowed to play." He gave her an encouraging nod before leaving to catch up with his friends. It wasn't a long conversation, but it stayed with her. It reminded her that even small moments of kindness mattered. As the sun dipped lower, the campus lights slowly turned on, creating soft glows along the walkways. Students made their way to dorms, study rooms, and cafes. The day was winding down, but conversations about the pianist had just begun. Back in the dorms, more students talked about her. Some had seen the security officers approach her earlier. Some had only heard about it through friends. A few others found her videos online and shared them again. Slowly, a small wave of curiosity and sympathy spread across campus. In a group chat, a student typed, "Does anyone know why she was kicked out? She wasn't doing anything wrong." Another replied, "Probably the dean. He hates anything that doesn't look formal." Someone else added, "If she needs a place to play, there are lots of spots on campus where she wouldn't bother anyone." Ideas began forming, even if no one said them out loud yet. Meanwhile, the girl packed her things and started walking toward the bus stop. The air had grown cooler, and she hugged her light jacket closer around her. Her keyboard felt heavy after a long day, but she didn't complain. She had carried it through bus rides, long walks, and late evenings many times before that. As she waited for the bus, she watched groups of students laughing together, heading out for dinner or study sessions. She had always wondered what it felt like to be part of a campus community, not as a visitor or performer, but as someone who belonged there. She imagined herself sitting in a lecture hall, taking notes, learning from teachers who understood music far better than she did. She pictured attending workshops, meeting others who loved music too, maybe even performing on a real stage someday. It was a dream she rarely admitted to herself, because it felt too big, too far away. But she couldn't help thinking about it tonight. When she reached her small apartment, her younger sibling greeted her with a big hug. "You're back. Did people like your music today?" She smiled softly. They did. Her sibling sat down beside her as she unzipped her keyboard case. "Did you make enough?" She hesitated, then nodded gently. "Enough for today. We'll manage." Her sibling didn't ask anything more. They knew she was doing her best. Later that night, she lay on her small bed, staring at the ceiling. She thought about the dean, the security officers, the students who listened, the boy who approached her, and the videos she didn't even know existed. She wondered if coming back would cause more problems. She didn't want to be seen as someone who disturbed the campus, but she also remembered how the students looked when they heard her music, their tired expressions softening, their steps slowing, their hearts opening for just a moment. She turned to her side and whispered to herself, "Maybe tomorrow will be kinder." Across campus, in a quiet office, the dean sat at his desk again. His paperwork was neatly stacked. His chair was perfectly positioned. His windows were closed, blocking out the night air. But something unsettled him. He didn't like disruptions. He didn't like anything that drew attention that he hadn't approved. He had noticed earlier how students gathered when the pianist played. He saw their reactions, their slowed steps, their smiles. He didn't understand why it bothered him, but it did. To him, the campus was meant to run like a machine, organized, predictable, controlled. Her music felt like a soft breeze entering a room he wanted closed. He didn't know her story. He didn't know her struggles. He didn't know her dreams. He only saw her as someone out of place. But as more students talked about her, his order to remove her had unintended ripple effects. He didn't know that videos of her were being shared. He didn't know that her music was starting to reach people far beyond the entrance. He didn't know that the campus he tried to control so tightly was beginning to move in a direction he couldn't predict. The next morning, students walked into the campus with coffee cups, backpacks, and sleepy eyes. But this time, many of them looked toward the entrance, half expecting to hear the soft melody they had gotten used to. Some looked disappointed when they didn't. A group of students who had spoken the day before met again near the arts building. "We should talk to her," one said. "Maybe she needs our support." Another nodded. "Or maybe we should talk to the administration. They can't just push people away without reason." But a quieter voice spoke up. What if we create a space for her? A place where she's welcome? The idea settled between them like a seed waiting to grow. Meanwhile, the girl woke early. She cleaned her keyboard. She packed her small bag. She checked her coins and notes, counting them carefully. She tied her hair back and looked at herself in the mirror. Her eyes looked tired, but there was still determination in them. She stepped outside, ready to try again, maybe not at the entrance this time, but somewhere else. She didn't want to give up. Not yet. She had no idea that today she would start crossing paths with people who cared more than she knew. She had no idea that students were already planning ways to help her. She had no idea that her story was spreading, quietly but powerfully. All she knew was that she wanted to play. She wanted to share the music inside her Dot, and sometimes that simple desire is enough to change everything. The campus didn't know it yet. But a small movement had begun, one built on empathy, curiosity, and the quiet hope that kindness could make something beautiful happen. Soon, the melody they all missed would return. And this time, it wouldn't be easy for anyone to silence it. Morning light washed gently over the campus, spreading across walkways, rooftops, and tall trees. Students moved in different directions, their steps slow as they adjusted to a new day. But even with the usual busyness, there was still a strange emptiness. The entrance looked too quiet, too plain without the soft notes of the pianist, who had become part of their routine. People noticed it more today. They didn't just look, they felt it. One student stood near the entrance and murmured, "It's like something's missing." Another responded, "Yeah, I didn't realize her music helped start my day right until it wasn't here." A few others nodded quietly before walking off to class. Across campus? Inside the arts building, a small group from the previous day was meeting again. They sat around a round table near the big windows where sunlight came through. "I checked online," one said while scrolling on his phone. "Her video has more views now. People keep leaving comments asking about her." Another leaned closer. "But we still don't know her name?" He shook his head. "Not yet." A girl sitting with them tapped her pen against her notebook. "We should find her today. She plays near the bus stop sometimes. Or maybe somewhere close to the main road." Someone else added, "It's not right that she was pushed away like that. She wasn't disturbing anyone. She brought calmness here." An idea formed slowly in their minds. They weren't planning a protest or a big event. Not yet. They just wanted to reach out to her, to show kindness, support, and maybe offer help if she needed it. Meanwhile, the girl herself was already on her way toward campus. Her keyboard case hung from her shoulder, bumping lightly against her side as she walked. She wasn't planning to go near the main entrance again. She didn't want more trouble with security. But she had found another small spot the night before, a shaded area near the campus garden where people often passed by. She wasn't sure if she was allowed there either, but she hoped it wouldn't draw the wrong attention. When she reached the garden, she placed her keyboard on a bench, took a breath, and started to play softly. Her melody rose like a warm breeze, gentle but comforting. It wasn't loud. It wasn't sharp. It blended with the sound of leaves, birds, and distant footsteps. Within minutes, students walking past slowed down. Someone whispered, "She's back." Another smiled without even realizing it. A few sat on the nearby benches, pretending to check their phones while secretly listening. Others walked slower on purpose, just to let the music last longer. The girl noticed, but she kept her eyes mostly on her instrument. She didn't want to look like she was trying to gather attention. She simply wanted to share her music with people who needed a little peace in their day. But not everyone reacted the same. Inside the administration building, the dean started his morning rounds of paperwork. His desk was perfectly arranged as usual, with neat stacks, sharp pencils, and clean surfaces. He took a sip of his coffee and walked toward the window. He opened the blinds halfway. His eyes immediately scanned the campus entrance, and then the paths beyond it. He didn't see her at first, and for a moment he felt relieved. But then, faintly, he heard it. A soft tumbling of notes drifting through the air. He froze. Music. He stepped closer to the window, searching for the source. When he finally spotted her near the garden, a frown slowly pulled on his face. He couldn't understand why this bothered him so much. It wasn't noise. It wasn't chaos. It wasn't dangerous. But something in him disliked anything unexpected, anything he didn't personally authorize. The campus in his mind had a fixed image, quiet, controlled, professional. Her music felt like a small ripple breaking the still water. He let the blinds fall shut and walked back to his desk, his jaw tightening. Not again, he muttered. Back outside, near the garden, something else was happening. The same group of students from earlier spotted her from a distance. They almost broke into smiles. They walked toward her, not wanting to startle her, but wanting her to know she wasn't alone. When they reached the bench beside her, one of them spoke gently. "Hey, we're glad you're here." She looked up, surprised. She paused her playing and gave a polite, nervous smile. "Oh, hello." Another student stepped forward. "We wanted to say thank you. Your music means a lot to students here." Her hands rested lightly on the keys as she listened. She looked touched, but unsure how to respond. A girl sat down at the edge of the bench. "When you weren't here this morning, it felt quiet. Not the good kind of quiet. The heavy kind." The pianist's eyes softened. "I didn't want to cause problems yesterday. I didn't know the rules." One student shook his head. "You didn't do anything wrong. The dean just doesn't like anything that looks informal. But students love what you do." She lowered her eyes, unsure what to say. She wasn't used to praise. She wasn't used to people going out of their way to speak to her. Then the student with the phone said, "Actually, a lot of people online love your music too. Your videos are getting shared more." Her eyes widened. "My videos?" He nodded. "Yeah, people recorded you before. They posted clips. They're spreading fast." She covered her mouth gently with her hand, surprised. I didn't know people were recording." "They only recorded because your music made them feel something," someone else added. She felt a small warmth rise inside her. She wasn't used to being seen, not like this, not in a way that felt kind. Before she could say anything more, a distant voice cut through the soft atmosphere. "Excuse me." The students turned. A campus security officer approached, not angry, but serious. The girl's heartbeat quickened. "Not again." The officer stopped a few steps away. "I'm sorry, but I've been asked to check this area." "Are you performing again?" The pianist nodded slowly. "Yes. I'm sorry if this isn't allowed. I can leave." But before she could even stand, one of the students stepped in. "Wait, she's not bothering anyone. This spot isn't blocking anything." The officer looked uncomfortable. "I understand, but I have to follow instructions." Another student stepped forward. "She's literally playing in a garden. Students come here to relax. Her music helps, not hurts." The officer sighed. He didn't want this conflict either. "I'll talk to the administration again," he said softly. "But for now, I'm supposed to ask her to pause." The students exchanged frustrated looks. The girl quietly turned off her keyboard. She didn't argue. She didn't want the students to get into trouble because of her, but the students weren't done. After the officer left, they turned to her again. "We're not letting this go," one said gently. "You deserve a place to play." She looked unsure. "I don't want to cause issues for anyone." "You're not," someone else replied. "This campus needs more heart, not less." One of the students suggested something bold. What if we talk to the music department? I bet they'd love to meet you. And maybe they can give you an official space to perform. Another added, or we can get permission from student clubs. They can host you somewhere. The ideas grew quickly. She listened quietly, surprised by how much they cared. She wasn't used to people helping her. She wasn't used to people standing up for her. She placed a hand on her keyboard case and said softly, "Thank you. I don't know what will happen next, but thank you for being kind." One of the girls smiled warmly. "You don't have to be alone in this." They exchanged contact details with her before going to their classes, promising they would try to help however they could. The pianist sat back down on the bench for a moment after they left. She didn't play again, not today, but she felt something new inside her. A spark of hope, a sense that maybe she wasn't invisible. Maybe she didn't have to face everything alone. What she didn't know was that the students were already spreading the word. That afternoon, in different parts of campus, small conversations brew. "Did you hear the pianist is back? She's amazing. Why is she getting pushed away? I think we should support her. Maybe we can organize something." It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was simply students caring, noticing, and wanting something good to happen. Even some professors overheard their students talking and asked, "What pianist?" Soon, they too became curious. Meanwhile, in his office, the dean received another call from security about her relocating to the garden area. His jaw tightened again. He closed his eyes for a moment, trying to control his irritation. Why is this causing so much noise? He muttered that to him. It wasn't about music anymore. It was about control, rules, order. He didn't understand that for everyone else. It was about kindness, inspiration, and moments of peace that by late afternoon. The students who had talked to the pianist earlier met again. They sat around the same round table, energized. "We need to help her," one said. "But how?" Another asked. Someone leaned forward. "We create a space for her. We gather students. We show the dean that her music isn't a disturbance. It's something we want." The group looked at each other with growing excitement. Like a gathering? More like a peaceful event. Something she can be part of without fear. Something the administration can't ignore. The seed that had been planted yesterday finally started to grow. The pianist walked home that evening, tired but strangely hopeful. She replayed the students' words in her mind. Their kindness lingered with her like a soft tune she didn't want to forget. Little did she know that the next steps were already being prepared behind the scenes. Students from different departments, groups, and backgrounds were slowly joining voices. Something was forming. A quiet unity, a shared purpose, a movement built. The afternoon air felt gentle as the young pianist walked toward the campus lawn with slow steps, almost unsure if she should even be there. She held her small keyboard close to her chest, the way someone holds something precious but fragile. She had been invited by a group of students who believed she deserved a chance to play freely, but she still carried the fear of causing trouble again. The memory of being told to leave by the dean still stayed with her like a cold shadow following behind. When she reached the open lawn, she saw the students waiting. Some sat on the grass, while others stood in small groups, speaking softly as if they were preparing for something meaningful. When they noticed her, their faces brightened. One student stepped forward with a gentle smile and told her they were happy she came. She felt her nerves tighten in her stomach, but there was something sincere in their eyes that made her believe they truly wanted her there. A portable keyboard had been set up for her, placed on a stand beneath a large tree that provided shade. She paused for a moment, looking at the keyboard, then at the crowd. She wondered if she truly belonged here. She wondered if she was really good enough for all of this attention. but she could also feel something warm in her chest, something that felt a little like hope. She took a deep breath and sat down. The students grew quiet, waiting patiently. The lawn seemed to grow still, as though even the breeze paused to listen. Birds perched on nearby branches, tilting their heads curiously. In that moment, she realized she had nothing to lose and everything to express. Music had always been the one place where she could be honest without fear. She placed her fingers on the keys, and with a gentle press, the first notes floated into the air. They were soft at first, like the beginning of a story being whispered. Then the melody grew steady, fuller, shaping itself into something with emotion and life. Students leaned forward without meaning to. Drawn by the sincerity in her playing, more students, walking by, stopped, listening with surprise. They had heard about the street pianist who was removed from campus, but many had never heard her play before. One by one, people gathered around, creating a circle of calm around her music. Even students who usually spent their afternoons hurrying to classes slowed down and drifted closer. She played a piece she had created during nights when she felt overwhelmed but refused to give up. Each note held part of her journey, her struggles, her dreams, her quiet determination. It was a melody that carried all the moments she had kept inside for too long. The sound rose and fell like a gentle conversation between her heart and the world around her. As the music spread across the lawn, it reached windows and hallways. A few teachers stepped outside their buildings, curious about the crowd. Others listened from doorways, surprised by the depth of emotion in the music. It wasn't loud or flashy. It was honest, warm, and painfully beautiful in the distance. The dean was walking across the path, reviewing some documents in his hand. He didn't notice the music at first, but as he came closer, he saw the large gathering on the lawn. His eyebrows pulled together, and his steps slowed. He could see the young pianist at the center, playing with closed eyes. Completely lost in her world, he felt frustration rising inside him. He believed rules existed to maintain order. He believed the campus needed structure, not unapproved performances. But as he approached, something unexpected happened. The melody touched him before he could speak. He had planned to interrupt immediately, to put a stop to the gathering, but the music made him pause. He stopped a few steps away from the crowd, unnoticed by most. The sound drifted around him, gentle yet powerful, carrying a feeling he couldn't easily explain. It reminded him of moments from long ago, times when he believed in creativity, times when he allowed himself to feel instead of control everything. He didn't like the sensation. It made him uncomfortable, but it also made him curious. The pianist continued playing without seeing him. Her fingers moved with confidence she didn't know she possessed. The students watched her with quiet admiration. Some even closed their eyes, letting the music wash over them. A few recorded her performance, not out of excitement, but because they wanted to remember the feeling this moment gave them. Near the back of the crowd, one teacher whispered to another that she had never heard something so meaningful from a young musician before. Another nodded, saying the melody felt like it carried a story waiting to be told. Their voices mixed with the soft breeze, adding to the quiet atmosphere that surrounded the pianist. The dean shifted his weight slightly. He knew he should step forward and speak, but every time he tried, the music seemed to hold him still. He noticed how the students reacted, how respectful and peaceful they were. He expected noise and chaos, but instead he saw unity and calmness. For the first time, he wondered if he had been too strict, too quick to judge. The melody changed gently, becoming deeper, more emotional. The pianist's thoughts drifted to her younger sibling, the reason she played on the streets, the reason she pushed through every challenge. She thought of nights when she wasn't sure if she could continue, but still did. Those emotions flowed into her music like water finding its path. Some students wiped their eyes, feeling moved by the sound without knowing the story behind it. Others held their breath, afraid that even a small noise would break the moment. The campus lawn felt like a shared heartbeat, steady and full of warmth. A soft sigh escaped from someone standing beside the dean. He didn't turn to look, but he understood. The music was building something inside everyone who listened, something gentle yet strong. Then, as the melody neared its peak, the pianist opened her eyes. She saw the crowd, but didn't notice the dean right away. Seeing so many people connected to her music filled her with a quiet joy she had never felt. For once, she didn't feel out of place. She felt seen, heard, and welcomed. She let her hands glide into the final section of the piece, letting each note settle softly into the air. The ending was simple, like a slow breath after a long day. When the last note faded, the crowd stayed silent for a heartbeat, as if still holding the echo. Then applause rose like a wave, warm, loud, and full of appreciation. She looked around, overwhelmed and unsure how to react. Her face grew warm as the students clapped and cheered for her. Some shouted kind words, others gave encouraging smiles. It was only then that she finally noticed the dean standing behind the crowd. Her breath caught for a moment. She didn't know if he had come to stop her again. A nervous flutter moved through her chest. The dean didn't speak yet. He looked at her with an expression she couldn't read. It wasn't anger, and it wasn't approval either. It was something in between, confusion mixed with thought. The students noticed him next. The applause softened, and a gentle quiet spread over the group once more. Everyone watched him, unsure of what he would say, but the dean didn't raise his voice. He didn't ask her to leave. Instead, he looked at the crowd, then back at the pianist. He opened his mouth slightly, but no words came out. Something in him was shifting, though he wasn't ready to admit it. Without saying anything, he slowly turned and walked a few steps back, still carrying the weight of the moment. It was clear. He didn't know how to respond, and for the first time, he didn't try to control the situation. The pianist let out a long breath she had been holding. The students gathered around her, congratulating her and thanking her for sharing her music. She felt lighter, as if a small piece of her life had finally fallen into place. Even though the dean had not spoken, his silence felt different this time, not cold, but thoughtful. And as students continued talking and smiling around her, she realized something important. Her music had finally been heard, not just as sound, but as a voice that connected people across the campus. What she didn't know yet was that this moment would not stay only on the lawn. It would soon travel far beyond the campus, opening doors she never thought she would see. The moment on the campus lawn stayed in everyone's mind long after the pianist finished playing. Students returned to their classes, still talking about the performance, whispering about how her music felt like something deeper than just a tune. Some replayed the videos they had recorded, and others shared them with friends who had missed the moment. By evening, clips of her performance began floating around social media, slowly gaining attention. But for the young pianist, the rest of her day felt strangely quiet. After packing her keyboard and receiving countless warm words from students, she walked home with slow steps. She kept thinking about how the dean had stood behind the crowd, not speaking, not scolding, just listening. That memory stayed with her more than the applause. She wasn't sure what it meant, but something about his expression told her he wasn't the same person who had sent her away days earlier. When she reached her small apartment, her younger sibling ran to her, asking about her day. She smiled softly and said it had gone better than she expected, but she didn't go into detail. She wanted to process everything herself first. That night, after dinner, she sat by the window with her small notebook, scribbling notes about new melodies that had formed in her mind. It was the first time in a while She allowed herself to think about creating something new. Back on campus, however, her performance was becoming the center of conversations. A group of professors discussed it in the staff lounge. They spoke about how rare it was to find someone so young with such raw emotional talent. One professor mentioned contacting the music department to show them the clips. Another suggested organizing a more official performance on campus. Meanwhile, the dean sat in his office, unable to focus on the documents in front of him. He kept remembering the music he had heard, how it had stopped him, how it had made him feel something he couldn't push aside. He wasn't angry. He wasn't annoyed. He was simply unsettled in a way he had not felt in years. He leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling. He had spent years building a reputation as someone strict, someone who believed rules were the foundation of a respectable campus. He had never allowed exceptions, never encouraged anything outside what he considered proper order. But that afternoon, standing behind the students, listening to her melody, he felt a softness in his chest he didn't expect. It was a feeling he had long ago locked away. The next morning, when he walked through the main hallway, groups of students were still talking about the performance. He overheard bits of conversation. Did you hear her music? It felt like something out of a movie. She didn't just play. She told a story. He didn't comment, but he listened. Each comment made him realize the students had experienced something meaningful, something he almost interrupted. Later in the afternoon, he received a visit from one of the senior professors, who knocked gently on his door. The professor stepped inside, carrying a tablet. With a polite smile, he asked the dean if he had a moment. The dean nodded slowly. "I thought you might want to see this," the professor said, placing the tablet in front of him. The dean pressed play. A video of the performance filled the screen. He watched silently as the pianist's fingers danced across the keys. He watched the students' reactions, their stillness, their awe. He watched his own figure in the background, standing without speaking. When the video ended, the professor spoke again. "She has a gift," he said gently. "A real gift. I think our campus would benefit from supporting talents like hers." The dean remained quiet. He didn't want to admit he agreed. He didn't want to show weakness. But deep inside, he knew the professor was right. That same day, the group of students who had invited the pianist gathered again, this time in the cafeteria. They were excited about how quickly the videos were gaining views. Some of them suggested organizing another performance, maybe even indoors. Others spoke about reaching out to community groups or local musicians who might help her as they discussed ideas. Someone mentioned inviting the pianist back for a bigger event. They wanted to do something that showed her she belonged, something that made up for the way she had been treated. Little by little, a plan began forming. 2 days later, the pianist returned to the campus, not to perform, but to thank the students who had supported her. She didn't expect anything else. She just wanted to show appreciation. When she reached the lawn again, she was surprised to find the same group waiting for her. They greeted her warmly and explained everything: the online attention, the professor's interest, and their idea for a larger event. She listened quietly, almost in disbelief. Her chest filled with a mix of gratitude and uncertainty. One student told her, "You brought something special to this place." People felt it. Another added, "We want you here. We want others to hear you too." The pianist didn't know what to say at first. She had never been given such an opportunity. She had always been afraid to hope for something this big. But looking at their excited faces, she felt that warm sensation again, the one she had felt under the tree. She nodded slowly, agreeing to take part. While the students busied themselves with organizing, the dean watched everything from a distance. He had not yet spoken to her. He felt unsure, almost awkward. He didn't know how to approach her, or what he should even say. Apologizing was something he rarely did. Accepting he might have been wrong was even harder. But the more he observed, the more he knew he needed to do something. A few days passed, and excitement grew across campus. Flyers began appearing on walls and bulletin boards, simple ones without dramatic words. Just an announcement of an open performance by the street pianist, whose melody had moved the campus. Students spread the word quickly. Some talked about bringing friends from other colleges. Others planned to record the event from better angles. A few professors even mentioned bringing their families. The pianist spent her evenings practicing quietly at home. She wasn't preparing because she wanted to impress anyone. She was preparing because she wanted to express herself fully, maybe for the first time in her life. Her sibling encouraged her every night, telling her she deserved this chance. On the day of the performance, the campus lawn transformed. A small stage had been set up with simple decorations, and chairs formed neat rows in front of it. There were no bright lights or dramatic banners, just a peaceful, inviting space. The pianist arrived early, holding her keyboard close. Students welcomed her with warm smiles, some helping her set up. She looked around, amazed at how many people were already gathering. As the time for the performance drew near, the crowd grew larger and larger. Students filled the chairs, others stood along the sides, and some sat on the grass. A few teachers and staff joined too, chatting softly. But what surprised everyone was when the dean walked toward the crowd. The students stepped aside, unsure of what he planned to do. The pianist saw him too, and her heart beat a little faster. The dean approached the stage with a calm expression. He paused for a moment, then looked at the pianist. His voice was quiet but steady. "I came to listen," he said simply. There was no anger in his tone, no hint of authority, just sincerity. The pianist nodded gently, relieved. The crowd settled. The pianist took her place. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting her thoughts settle. She wasn't just playing music today. She was showing her journey, her heart, her truth. She began with the same melody she had played under the tree, but this time it felt fuller, stronger, more open. The notes carried through the open space, weaving through the air like a soft breeze. Students leaned in, holding their breath. Teachers smiled, touched by the emotion. Even the dean stood still, listening carefully. As the song grew, the pianist shifted into a new melody, a piece she had created during nights full of doubt and determination. It rose gently at first, then built like waves, full of longing and hope. The crowd felt it. They felt the story behind the notes, even without knowing the details. They felt the weight of her past and the light she was reaching for. When she reached the final section, the air grew still again. Her hands moved with a calm confidence, touching the keys like they were part of her. The last note hung in the air for a long, fragile moment before fading. Silence followed. An applause erupted, louder than before, echoing across the campus. Students stood. Some wiped their eyes. Others cheered with bright smiles. The pianist looked out at the crowd, overwhelmed. She had never imagined she would see something like this. And in that moment, as the applause continued, the dean felt something shift in him, a realization that sometimes rules needed to make room for humanity. He knew an important decision was coming next, and he knew he could no longer ignore the feeling. Her music had awakened inside him. The applause faded slowly, but its warmth stayed with the young pianist long after the sound died down. She stood on the small stage, breathing carefully, trying to steady the mixture of relief and disbelief swelling inside her. Her hands trembled. A little, not from fear this time, but from the intensity of everything she had just experienced. The crowd's faces were full of admiration, kindness, and something even more meaningful. Respect. For a moment, she simply stood there, letting the soft evening air touch her skin. The lights set around the stage gave the scene a calming glow, and the sky above was shifting from blue to a soft shade of gold. Everything felt peaceful in a way she hadn't felt in a long time. Slowly, people began approaching her. Students came first, offering gentle compliments, thanking her for sharing her music, telling her how deeply the songs had touched them. Some told her that her melody had helped them feel something they had been holding inside for too long. Others said it reminded them of home, family, or moments they missed. She smiled shyly at each one of them, unsure how to express how much their words meant to her. It felt strange, almost unreal, to be celebrated like this. She had spent so many days feeling invisible, and now she was standing in the center of a crowd that couldn't stop appreciating her. A few professors approached next. One of them, a teacher from the music department, told her that her performance carried something rare emotion that couldn't be taught. He gently asked if she had ever considered formal training or applying to a music program. She hesitated, unsure what to say. She had never thought such things were possible for someone like her. Before she could fully answer, she noticed someone standing a short distance away. The dean. He had remained quiet the entire time, watching as people surrounded her, congratulating her. His posture was still stiff, his hands folded behind him in a familiar way, but his expression looked different, softer, thoughtful, almost uncertain. The pianist took a quiet breath. She didn't know what he planned to say, but she knew this moment mattered. The students slowly stepped aside, giving space as the dean approached the stage. His steps were slow, as if he was choosing each one carefully. When he finally reached her, he paused, meeting her eyes for the first time without anger or authority. For a few seconds, neither of them spoke. Then the dean let out a quiet breath, as though releasing something heavy he had carried for years. "You played beautifully," he said softly. It wasn't the kind of voice she expected from him. No sharpness, no cold edge. Just sincerity. She nodded politely, unsure how to respond. The dean continued, "I was wrong when I asked you to leave earlier that week." His voice wavered slightly, something the students nearby noticed with surprise. "I thought rules mattered more than people, more than moments like this." He looked down for a second before adding, "But your music showed me something I had forgotten." The pianist listened silently. Her heart softened. She didn't expect an apology, certainly not from someone like him. But hearing it, seeing the honesty in his expression, made her realize he was trying to change. He went on, "If you are open to it, I would like to offer you an opportunity to become part of our campus. I want to help you find a way to study here formally. You deserve a place to grow your talent, not just perform it." The crowd behind them grew still, their eyes widening. Some students exchanged excited looks. A few quietly gasped. The pianist felt her breath catch. She wasn't expecting anything close to this. Her mind filled with thoughts, her sibling, her long nights playing in the cold, the fear she felt when the dean first told her to leave, and the moment she found the courage to return. Now this. Her voice trembled as she finally spoke. I don't know what to say." "You don't have to decide now," the dean assured her. "Just know that the door is open. You have earned it." The students behind her smiled, some whispering happily. The pianist looked out at them before turning back to the dean, gratitude shining in her eyes. "Thank you," she said quietly. The dean gave a small nod and stepped aside, allowing the students to come forward again. He didn't leave immediately, though. He stayed nearby, listening as they celebrated with her, perhaps realizing how much he had misunderstood the hearts of the people around him. The event slowly came to an end. People began gathering their belongings, talking excitedly as they walked away. Some still hummed the melody she had played earlier. The warm voices mixed with the soft sounds of evening insects starting their nightly song. Once most of the crowd dispersed, The pianist stepped down from the stage and carried her keyboard carefully. A couple of the students walked with her, helping her pack up. They chatted about how the whole campus would be talking about her performance for days. She laughed quietly, shaking her head as if still unsure it had really happened. As she walked toward the exit of the campus, she felt a sense of calm settle over her. The trees along the path rustled gently in the breeze, and the lamps glowed softly, guiding her way. The night felt different, lighter, kinder. When she reached home, her younger sibling ran to greet her, eyes bright with curiosity. "How did it go?" they asked excitedly. The pianist smiled, setting down her keyboard. "It went well," she said softly. They sat together as she shared the entire story, how the crowd grew, how the music felt flowing through her, how the dean listened quietly, and how he offered an opportunity she never imagined. Her sibling listened with eyes wide, taking in every detail. When she finished, they hugged her tightly, whispering, "You deserve everything good." That night, the pianist lay awake for a long time, not because she was worried, but because she was filled with wonder. Her life had changed in ways she didn't expect. She wasn't sure what would happen next, but for the first time in a long while, she wasn't afraid of the future. Over the next few days, the videos of her performances spread even further. The campus invited her back for meetings with the music department. Several teachers expressed interest in helping her apply for scholarships. Students greeted her warmly whenever she walked through the grounds. The dean, although still strict, in many ways became gentler in how he handled situations. Some staff members noticed the shift, though few knew exactly what had brought it on. He didn't mention the performance often, but he never forgot the moment her melody reached him. In time, the pianist officially joined the campus as a student after receiving a full scholarship. Her sibling cheered the loudest on the day she received the acceptance letter. The music department welcomed her warmly, providing instruments, guidance, and space to grow. She continued performing on campus, sometimes on the lawn, sometimes in small halls, sometimes during student events. Each performance carried a piece of her journey, from the streets to the stage. The dean attended many of her recitals, always standing quietly at the back. He didn't seek praise or recognition. He simply listened. Months passed, and the campus transformed into a place where creativity was not just allowed, but encouraged. Students began organizing open performances regularly. Teachers supported new artistic ideas. A sense of unity grew. And at the heart of it all was the memory of the street pianist whose melody once echoed through the campus, changing everything. She had not only found her place, but helped the campus rediscover its own heart. The day she played her first composition in the school's auditorium, the crowd rose again in applause, warm, proud, and full of admiration. And somewhere in the back, the dean smiled softly, knowing the campus was better because he had learned to listen. The young pianist's journey was far from over, but one thing had become beautifully clear. When someone is finally heard, their music can change more than just a moment. It can change lives. And her melody had done exactly that.